Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I'm from executeautomation.com and welcome to the Coypu video series. And in this video we'll be talking about writing first code with Coypu. So Coypu methods are DSL, meaning it is domain specific. So the methods which is available in Coypu are very meaningful. Some of the examples are like this. So to type a text in Selenium we use send keys, whereas in Coypu it is fill in. Similarly, for clicking a button or clicking a checkbox or an option button, there is only one generic method which is click. Whereas in Coypu, there are different methods available for each and every control operation. So for clicking a button, it's click button. So for clicking a link, it is click link. For choosing a option button, it's choose. Similarly, for checking a checkbox, it is check. So this is how the Coypu is so DSL in its method names, and that's something called domain specific language. So Selenium versus Coypu, this is pretty important, and you can see that the methods available in Coypu versus Selenium is pretty obvious. You can see in Selenium for finding a element we use driver.findElement, whereas in Coypu it's browser session.find. And there are different methods available for find, like find by CSS, XPath, find ID. We'll talk about that when we start working on it. Similarly, for performing an operation for typing a text, we used to do like this: driver.findElements by ID and the value for the ID, and send keys and the value for the send keys method. So all these informations we provide for Selenium. Whereas for Coypu, since it is domain specific, we use like this: browser session dot fill in which control that you're going to fill in. So fill in and the ID of the control or the name or whatever it is. You don't really have to specify what it is. That's the beauty of it. All you have to give is the locator, what you know, whether it's an ID or it's a name or it's a text, whatever it is. You just have to pass in there, and then you have to call one more method called dot with, and you have to pass the text that you're going to type in, that is EA. That simple it is. So it is pretty easy and pretty obvious in Coypu that you are doing a domain specific language testing. You don't have to really mess up with a lot of IDs, XPath and all those stuff as we discussed in our previous video. Similarly, for clicking a button, we should be doing a click method. So I didn't change this text here in this slide, so just bear with me. It is not send keys, it is click. Whereas in Coypu, it is browser session dot click button. That simple it is. So it is pretty obvious. So let's start working with it, and then you'll understand what is the major difference between Coypu and how easy it is while you start working with it. So for that, I'm going to flip to Visual Studio. Alright, so this is my Visual Studio, and I have already created a simple project here. And as you can see here, it's a very plain unit test project, and it has only Microsoft Visual Studio quality tools. What I'm going to do basically is I'm going to delete this guy so that the reference will be gone, and of course the reference will be gone, so I'm going to delete this as well. All I'm going to do is I'm going to install the Coypu package in my project. Since Coypu is going to use NUnit heavily, so I'm going to use NUnit for this case. So let's start installing the Coypu in our project. So install package Coypu. That simple it is. So it has installed the Coypu for us, and then we have to install two more packages. One is coypu.nunit, so that you can have NUnit functionality in it. So Coypu, install package coypu.nunit. Great. So now we have NUnit framework, and we have the Coypu and coypu.nunit. Awesome. So instead of test class in NUnit, it is called as test fixture. So I'm going to type test fixture, and I'm going to import the attribute. Similarly, instead of test method, the attribute is just test. All right. So we're all done with the setup of the Coypu. That's it. So simple it is. And then we'll start writing a very simple code. So for very simple code, I'm going to use a very simple application as well. And I'm going to use our executeautomation.com/login.html. And this is the simple site which we have been using so long in our series of Execute Automation channel. And this site is basically have all the control which you can test if your tool is really going to perform the operation that you are expecting for. So let's quickly type the username and password, and you can see that it has a drop down, it has a text box, and it has some option buttons, checkbox, and there is a button, there is a pop-up window, all those stuff. So basically this is a collection of all the controls that you would really expect. So I'm going to use this site. So basically this is our site, so I need to open this site and see how it's going to work. So what I'm going to do, the first and foremost thing in Selenium that we do is driver is equal to new Firefox driver, or you specify Internet Explorer driver or Chrome driver, whichever browser that you're going to work with. But here in Coypu, you have to specify it a little differently. There is something called session configuration. So the session configuration class basically has some properties that has to be set before you start working with the browsers. So I'm going to use the session configuration is equal to new session configuration. Great. So this is the class, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set some properties for it. So you can do it two ways. One is directly call the property using its variable, something like this, or you can also do in a different way. What you can do, you can just do something like this, and here you can assign all the properties. So the property which I'm going to assign is browser. So I'm going to tell the browser is going to be Firefox. Of course, the default browser is going to be Firefox. You can specify this, or you don't even have to specify it, but for demonstration purpose I'm going to specify it to Firefox. And then I'm going to specify the app host. So the app host is basically the path or the host name of my site, and the site which I'm going to work with is executeautomation.com. That's it. So these are the two properties that I'm going to assign for my session configuration. This is okay for assigning the session configuration. The next thing is we need to open the browser, right? So you do what? The driver.navigate.go to URL, right? That's the classical way of doing it in Selenium. But in Coypu, it's a little bit different. We're going to use something called browser session. So I'm going to use this browser session. And here you need to pass the session configuration. So the object of the session configuration is the one which we just created up. So I'm going to use this. And this is really going to open the executeautomation.com. But our site is basically available in demo site/login.html. So we have to go a little deeper. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to again specify something called browser dot, there is a method called visit, and here you need to specify the virtual path of your website. So maybe before going that, I'm going to just comment this thing out, and let me quickly build this solution and just try to run this test method and see what's going to be the behavior of this test. All right, so I'm going to open the test explorer and I'm going to run the selected test. And as you can see, it's opening the browser and it should navigate to executeautomation.com. That's what is our expectation, but it's really not happening. And that's why I was saying that we need to actually use this visit method to specify what is the virtual path that we're really going to visit. And the virtual path that we're going to visit is this guy, the demo site/login. So /demo site/login.html. And now if we try to run this test method, and this time you're going to see that it should be opening our executeautomation.com/demo site/login.html. Awesome, right? This is what is the behavior. And now just sit back and think the code that we have written. In our Selenium, or in the classical Selenium without using the Coypu wrapper, what we do is like this. driver is equal to new Firefox driver. We specify the driver here, and then we navigate like driver dot navigate go to URL, something like that. Maybe the syntax is wrong, but I'm just typing it. And then you specify the URL of your website here, something like that, right? So you do all of this in a classical way of doing it. But here right now you have created a session for the browser. That's what you're doing in your actual code as well. But you don't really tell that in your code, which is kind of meaningful for the person who really know the technology behind the scenes, what's happening for the Firefox driver. You're actually creating a session for the browser, but that you're not telling, you're just telling it as a driver there. But here you can see that you are creating a browser session, and that's the domain specific language method that you are creating within the Coypu. And that's the pretty interesting stuff. Every method name has a meaning, that to the actual meaning of the operation that you're going to perform. That's pretty interesting for me as well. All right, so we have opened the browser. Now let's do a quick and very quick operation that we can perform in the username and password text box. Let's quickly do that. So as I already said, to type some text in the text box, there is a method called fill in, and then for clicking a button, you're going to use click button. And fill in is going to work with combination of with method. So let's quickly write and see how it's going to look like. Browser dot fill in, and you can see there are so many methods, man. See, find window, fill in, find all CSS, find. That's what I was saying. There are so many find methods available out of the box in the Coypu framework, right? And similarly, there are so many methods available like visit, accept model, check, choose, click button, click link, execute script, exists, and so many methods. These methods are really not available out of the box in Selenium, but this is available in Coypu. That's why it is much powerful, I was saying. So browser.fill-in, and I'm going to type the username and password. So I know the ID of these two text box. It's the username and password. That simple it is. So username dot, as I said, the fill in method is going to work in combination with another method, which is with method. And here you're going to supply the value for the text field. So with, and the value I'm going to supply is the admin, right? And then the password which I need to type is this password, and the password is anything. Actually, the password is not really going to matter in my website, so you can just type any value you want to. Even without username and password, this site is going to log in. So that's super simple it is. So username and password, and then we're going to click the button. So in Selenium, what you used to do is we find the control, and then we find it with the ID or CSS or XPath, whatever it is, and then we perform the click operation. We also perform submit operation based on the type of button it is. So those things are clearly not required here. All you're going to do is click the button. That's it, right? So why you really have to break so much of things in your head? So here it is browser dot click button. That's it. And you can see that click a button, input of type submit or image or a div within the CSS class or button, whatever it is, it just performs the click operation. And that's the super simple operation that it's going to do. So I'm going to do a click operation. That's it. And here, as you can see, I'm not specifying what type of locator that I'm going to work with. See, it just matches the control automatically. So it finds the first matching text field to appear within the configured timeout, and the locators are going to be like the label element or the ID or the name, whatever it is you can do here. Just username and password. You can just give the username and password and it just works fine. I'm going to save this code and let's quickly run this test and see what's going to really happen. All right, so it opened the browser, it's typing the username and the password and it's clicking the login. Awesome. So this is how you can perform and write a very simple code with Coypu. And in the next video, we'll talk more about how to perform the other operation with controls that we have. Thank you very much for watching this video and have a great day.